While they are squabbling, of course, Tristan Ovenden up front is getting away.
They say that perfection doesn't exist in this game. Most players just don't have it in them. But those who dare to seek it might catch excellence. And that sounds perfect to me. So, I'm done playing. Let's drive.
Hello everyone and welcome to Donington Park, where the ROKiT British F4 Championship gets its start, and well, it's the esports version here on RaceSpot TV. My name's Connery Maddock and I'm joined by the ever wonderful Lewis McGlade for this inaugural season. Lewis, it's fantastic that we've gotten British F4 involved in this. Of course, this is brought to you in partnership with Motorsports UK as well, getting their hands stuck into the esports scene. We're just here along for the ride.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, another officially sanctioned motorsport series here. Great to have. I know British F4 have had a fair share of experience within the sim racing world in the fairly recent past. We'll talk about all that throughout this broadcast, don't worry. But it's great to see a fully fledged championship, 6 rounds throughout. We're going to have a lot of fun in this, I think. A lot of fun indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some names you might recognize in sim racing, some top-level competitors, some names you might not recognize working their way through as well. And in addition, we have a couple of the real-life drivers that you see out there on many circuits around the UK taking part in this one as well. We'll get to know everyone over the course of the season. You don't need to know them now, don't worry. But I am super excited for what's to come, Lewis.
So am I. Again, these cars are so much fun to race. IRO4, little car, tiny, absolutely tiny comparatively to the open wheelies that a lot of people are used to at the higher categories, of course, in motorsport. These are a lot of fun to race. Big slipstream battles. I've seen them race fairly recently in the sim around Donington Park. It's a pretty exciting affair. I could say that for sure.
Yeah, I can say it as well, but we'll dive straight in here. We'll have a little bit of a look at the format and the prizes that these drivers will be competing for over the course of this season. The format, well, each round will include 2 30-minute races. The grid for race number 1 will be decided by a lone qualifying session. That means, if you're unfamiliar with sim racing, the drivers will be out there on their own from their point of view. They will be able to affect no one else. They will get affected by no one else. The grid for race 2, however, will be determined by a reverse grid dependent on the results of race number 1. And that reverse grid will be a random reverse grid between the 5th position and 10th position in race number 1. So we got a bit of a random elements coming in here. That's not too unusual for sim racing, not too unusual for the real world as well. 25 points for the top position in the team scoring. Remember, we do have 2 championships running concurrently here with the teams and the driver standings. We'll get onto that in just a second. Our final points paying position is P10 in this one, Lewis.
Yeah, and I think, especially in that first race, you need to make sure that you're 5th. That, like a bare minimum, of course, yeah, ideally, you'd make sure that you're winning, but bare minimum, you need to be 5th. You need to be within that reverse grid element. Sure, it means that if the reverse grid does end up taking 10th place, you're going to be starting from 6th, but still, you're giving yourself the highest opportunity to score the most points throughout the round in race 1 and, of course, race 2. Although I wouldn't be too worried if you end up, finishing 11th, 12th, 30th, whatever in the first race, because trust me, those reverse grid races are going to be absolutely crazy. All the racing is going to be absolutely crazy, and if you don't qualify too well, I think in this car you can make your way up the order, no problem.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of overtaking out there today. It's Donington Park does tend to be a circuit, well, at least here on iRacing, does promote the side-by-side action, so potentially plenty of that to come. But of course, like I said, these drivers, they will be competing in these two different championships. Arguably, if we go and have a look at the prize money here in just a second, this is more of a teams-focused championship instead of a drivers-focused championship. The prize money for the teams much higher than they are for the drivers. There's the breakdown on the left-hand side there. £2,500 goes to the top team, with second place £1,500, and then third place £1,000. There are also smaller prizes for the drivers as well. So coming into this, there's going to be a very, very big team focus, and I have to wonder whether or not that will affect the racing that we'll have here today and throughout this season as well, with groups of teammates, pairs of teammates trying to work together to try and work their way through the field.
Oh yeah, this is not a championship that's been put on for the Mega Bants. There is cheddar cheese on the line and plenty of prizes with it. All of them to be fought over, I think, very harshly among our competitors across the season. The entry list, by the way, is absolutely stacked of big teams, big drivers, big names from the world. I said the world of sim racing, and of course the world of motorsport as well. I think that's one of the things that we really like about championship list. It's that merger of both. You can see here Apex Racing Team. They've got a couple of cars here along with the Academy. Monster Rugby Gaming, that one's run by Williams. JHR Developments, you'll obviously know from the real world Formula 4, along with Team Sports Century Sim Racing. And then Racing Star was one that I did want to talk about a little bit. I will do a bit later on. Fantastic stuff. Monica Bolt-Maris and Deegan Fairclough will be racing in the Real World Championship next year, courtesy of the Racing Star competition they took part in earlier in the year. I mean, that's a fantastic story. We get to see them out in action tonight, which I think will be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's great to see these teams out there. We got Apex in there, like you already mentioned. Of course, competitor in some of the top series in sim racing. They're getting themselves stuck in. We've got Prismatic Motorsports there getting themselves involved with Team Fordzilla, with Emery Chian, who's, well, not entirely used to seeing him on iRacing, but he is, of course, very much competitive on other platforms. And, well, it is definitely, like you said, Lewis, an absolutely stacked field here today. Real-life drivers getting themselves involved as well. Lewis Apiegi, of course, one of them getting himself involved there with that Mensa racing machine. So yeah, this is going to be crazy. It's going to be a very, very competitive field indeed, and it's completely unknown at this point, even decide a group of drivers that will be in the running for the championship at the end here.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple in there that I'd circle. YRDA Arden, I'd certainly circle Ted Bradbury, who I know is very, very fast in this car. Super excited to see where they're going to end up. But before we talk about any of that, I think we should probably take a little look around the track we racing at, of course, Donington Park. Brilliant track, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. So I have to correct myself. Apiegi, of course, not a real-world driver. He did get experience in the Praga, though, but he is indeed a pro sim racer and actually a Guinness World Record holder. Fantastic stuff. But let's have a look at the schedule then. Of course, first round of the season, Donington Park National Circuit. A little bit close to my heart, I'll be honest. I lived near Donington Park for a good couple of years when I was in university. I've been very lucky to see the BTCC and the Support Series come to this circuit. So it's, again, close to my heart. And again, we tend to see some very, very good races at this circuit. At least ones I've commentated on here in iRacing. I might be lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, it is a great track, super open, so much potential around here for overtaking. Here's a look at the circuit. We'll be running the national layout, so we're not using the Grand Prix loop over on the right-hand side, but it is a brilliant track, a testing track with lots of extremely difficult corners. It's not one to be underestimated by any of our drivers, be it through qualifying or through the races, around the competitors and whatnot. It's quite wide, though, and that's what we like to see. We'll take a look on board as we head out onto the start-finish race, about 600 metres on the run from the final chicane at Goddard on the Wheatcroft straight up towards Redgate. You'll see how much of the left-hand side of the circuit that they'll use as they brake, come in for this slightly later apex. Very, very tricky corner at Redgate T1. You'll see them running out much, much wider than that as we head through Hollywood and then down one of my favourite parts of this track. And to be fair, any of the race circuits in this country, down the Craner curves towards the old hairpin. This is extreme bravery. Just a couple of downshifts, throw it in, let the downforce of the car grip it to the road as you head under the what was Starkey's Bridge, of course, up towards the Schwantz curves, and then into McLean's. Very tricky breaker zone. Uphill, slightly off camber as well once you start getting through it, just rising up there on the inside of the circuit, out onto the curb before you head to the rise at Coppice. Very tricky. Blind entry, use a lot of the curb over on the right-hand side. We'll certainly be seeing a lot of that throughout the day, and then coming up towards one of the best overtaking opportunities onto the Starkey Straight. The old Dunlop Bridge used to be here as they head down into the chicane at Goddard's. Tricky braking zone, this one. Big curbs left and right. You can really abuse that. You'll see them just about wrestling it over the sausage curbs. That is a little look around Donington, and it is a lap which in a 10-minute qualifying session, Connery, is very, very easy to mess up.
It absolutely is, and not a lot of room for error around here. It's definitely one of those more old school circuits, as we do have live on-track action now. Lone qualifying has started. There'll be allotted 10 minutes to be able to complete 4 flying laps. And, well, if they do any more flying laps, they will not be counted. That's the way things work here in iRacing. So I'm familiar that some people might be tuning in, and this is the first time that they've tuned into a sim racing broadcast. So things might be slightly different compared to what you usually find in the real world. And I would say that's a bit of a strength, because we can adapt to things perhaps a little bit better. But we're seeing drivers just sort of on their out laps here for the moment, and one of the Apex Racing team cars, this is Peter Berryman in the number 50, heading down the back straights to eventually come across the line and start his lap.
Yeah, he's pretty experienced when it comes to open wheelers. I think is what Mr. Peter Berryman. He's got his fair share of race victories and championships in open wheel competitions. Of course, the 2021 Dallara iRacing World Champion. Great driver in open wheels. This is slightly slower, got to be said, as they head through Redgate. Only 160 brake horsepower in this car, about 160 anyway, slightly above that, but it's enough that you've got to kind of wrestle it a little bit, and the lower downforce in a car like this, you've got to use momentum as the main factor. Yeah,
you really do, and well, under racing conditions, that momentum can be scuppered somewhat if someone's going to try and stick their nose down your inside. And well, a track such as this, momentum is certainly key. Riding on board though with Peter Berryman as he heads in towards the second half of the lap here. Heading his way through, of course, getting onto Coppice, coming out of Coppice, excuse me, and down the back straights. It's such an important to get the best run possible out of there to potentially allow an overtaking opportunity into the final chicane here. But Berryman flicks his way through there, coming up towards the start-finish line now. What's the initial time going to be for Peter Berryman? It's a 1:04.744. Currently not good enough for provisional pole position. Alexander Spetz gets himself up there with Jamie Fluke also on the front row as well. Fluke, of course, Berryman's teammate, but everything gets disrupted as more drivers set themselves times here. As it does look like Jamie Fluke's time actually counted there. Oh, it did count there. He just got shuffled quite far down the order in the process.
Yeah, as much as the lap times you'd expect to be very, very close around here, as Schmidt goes up inside the top 10. Great stuff in the opening laps, of course, for Prismatic Motorsports. But the thing with these cars around here is the gaps will be larger than you'd expect. It's only a 64-second lap, fair enough. But the challenging corners around here, up through Coppice, the McLeans, going down to the old hairpin, there's a lot of commitment, a lot of bravery through these corners that you kind of lose quite a lot of time if you don't trust the car, which clearly Spetz, Fairclough, they certainly did. I will say, Jamie Fluke's lap looked really, really clean. I don't know where he lost half a second. Yeah,
because, it's a bit surprising there for Jamie Fluke. However, they have the benefit of 4 times laps here in this qualifying session. Usually in iRacing, in lone qualifying, you only get around 2 or 3, so to have that extra lap in hand is definitely beneficial. Here's Mira Schmidt, though, heading her way out of the final corner and across the start-finish line for the Prismatic Motorsports machine. Has been able to set a time, P13 for now for Mira, but still plenty of time left in the session to improve.
Spetz, though, really big improvement on that final lap, 1:04.3, super stuff at the moment. Of course, Munster Rugby game card. That one is run by Williams Esports, of course, himself and Josh Ladd jumping into this one, looking very, very strong line. That's a very impressive time to be a couple of tenths clear of Deegan Fairclough in that number 87.
Here's Stanley Deslanders then. across the start-finish line for the Apex Racing Academy. So Apex Racing technically have the benefit of having two teams as part of this championship. There are academy drivers and their quote-unquote full team drivers as well. You can distinguish between the two of them in their liveries due to the full team being in blue, the academy being in the green. He is the onboard with Deslandis as he descends down the corner curves and into the hole to hairpin. That could be potentially a tricky spot on a first lap once we get into the racing here. Lots of incidents have happened down into there as drivers try to jostle for position. But for Deslandis, it looks like a clean lap for now, climbing up all over the curves, trying to maximize the track limits here at Donington Park. Flicking his way through the right, you can see there's a lot of wheel work there to try and make sure he's keeping it on the limit of grip and making sure he can keep that foot planted to the floor through the corners. And now one more big braking zone to go before the end of the lap. Feeds that through in quite nicely. Has the curb a little bit on the first apex. Maximum track exit coming out of the corner across the line. But Deslandis, it is an improvement by about a tenth of a second. And he goes up into 5th place. Berryman, though, able to improve to a front row start currently.
And Pev moves up into 10th position. Here's Caruana, who's one who should really be quite faster in this car. He's had plenty of experience racing the likes of Ted Bradbury plenty of times in the IRO4, just generally in iRacing competitions. I know because I've been behind them almost every single time. It's only when they come together that I end up even remotely in the same postcode. As Caruana comes down into the final chicane, 9th position at the moment. You said there when we were looking on board with Deslandis there, I mean, getting very heavy onto the brakes into that final chicane. You are only using the brakes a maximum of 5 times around here, and even then, one of them is fairly questionable, and that's, of course, the run of the old hairpin. That one's sort of like, I mean, sometimes a downshift of the engine brake might be able to just about do enough for you to throw it in. You're not on the brakes very much. It means you have to maximise every single braking opportunity. It's ridiculously hard to get the most out of a car around here.
It really is, and especially in such a competitive qualifying session where even hundredths of a second matter. Josh Ladd's getting quite excited on his way through the final couple of corners there. Does actually come across the line to set his personal best time. Still P8 for now, so no improvement for Josh Ladd as he takes the tow back to the pit lane. So potentially he might not be able to set another lap before this session is done. Here's Mira Schmidt, though, on one of her final laps as well, 74, coming across the line. 105.085 to beat in terms of personal best, is unable to do so that time around. We've still got a couple of minutes left in the session, but the laps are wearing down a little thin here at the moment. And in fact, I'm not seeing anyone on circuit that's on an active flying lap. So this might end up being our starting grid here, Lewis.
Yeah, I think a few drivers have gone out there. Obviously, you said they're about doing 4 laps. I think quite a lot of the drivers have gone out and just done all 4 laps basically in one go, in one stint. I think what we're seeing here from Mira Schmidt might be potentially in that kind of vein, maybe even going a little bit longer, of course, as much as there are 4 time laps you can do, but still just staying on it. We'll take a little bit of a replay on board, though, with Alexander Spets to kind of get an understanding as to how this track has been wrestled to that pole up of a 104.356. I don't think anyone's going to beat it because no one else is going out.
Yeah, like I said, on board with Alex Spets, number 32, pole position time here in the first round of the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. It looks very, very clean, at least from where I'm sitting, feeding it into the old hairpin. Great stuff. It looks like that car's on rails. We saw with a couple of the other onboards how active the drivers were behind the wheel, but Spets seems like he's gotten the car in the right place. Very, very calm, letting the car slide out, letting that back end slide out. Bit of a correction there, but all in all, looking very, very tidy.
Yeah, it's looking very clean indeed. Like I said, such an impressive lap in the opening phases, and it's so easy to get inside your own head at this exact point. You're coming down into the final chicane, and you're thinking, I've got to nail this braking zone. I've done it so many times where you get to that point, you see the 100-meter board fly straight past, and think, right, that's it, I've gone straight on. Beautiful lap there from Spets, and the Munster Rugby gaming car looks to be starting the first race of the season from pole position. No one is out on track. 50 seconds left in the session. That means the session is done.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We will have to wait for this time to wind down before the drivers are able to get themselves onto the starting grid here for our first 30-minute race here at Donington Park. The first qualifying session is in the bag. Alex Spetz getting himself on pole position, which is a fantastic effort there from Spetz. Of course, no stranger to sim racing, part of the winning team for the 2022 Majors 24 Hours of Le Mans, and also currently taking part in the VCO ERL Fall Cup as well. Yeah, lots of experience behind the wheel of that number 32 car, and getting one over the likes of Peter Berryman on that front row, certainly no small feat.
I mean, yeah, it's a strong top end of that grid. Spetz, Berryman, Bradbury, Fairclough. I mean, I don't want to mess with any of them. I think a few drivers that might be a little bit disappointed with it, as I'll let you actually talk through the grid.
Here we go, starting grid, our first one of the season in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. Alex Spetz on pole position with Peter Berryman in P2. Ted Bradbury will start P3 with Tegan Fairclough in P4. Stanley Deslandis will start in P5 with Luke McEwen in 6th. Looking further down the order, we have Matt Corona starting 7th with Josh Ladd in P8. Emery Chian will start in 9th with Peo Pev in P10. Ryan McAuliffe in P11 with Oliver Stepanov in P12. Further down the order, we've got Dion Goda, we've got Jamie Fluke starting from P14 here today, Chris Owen in P15 with Pete Harrod in P16. Mira Schmidt will start 17th today with James Armstrong in P18. Monica Ramos will start in 19th place with Azzy Iredale in P20. Carl Chase will start in 21st with Kian Gohill in P23, and Lewis Apayagi rounds out the 23-car starting grid here today at Donington Park. Drivers gradually getting themselves ready. Of course, just like in the real world, it will be a standing start here at Donington to get going. And, well, there's always nerves before the start of the race, but before the start of the first race of the season, it's perhaps when the nerves are going to be at their highest.
Yeah, definitely. It's a tough run. That race down towards first quarter, about 200 meters, 250 meters from pole position that Spetz will have to deal with. Making sure they nail that start is going to be tricky. And like I said before, there's going to be a couple of drivers that will be disappointed with that. McAuliffe, who'll be way down the order, 11th position. Jamie Fluke, 14th. A couple of drivers might be a little bit furious with how that qualifying session's gone, but put it to the back of your mind. Focus on the session ahead and focus on the race and the big stuff and working out the order.
Yeah, I will say that it's a surprise seeing Jamie Fluke that far down the order, but potentially he might be able to give us a little bit of action here in the first race of the season. The ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship is about to get itself underway here in 2022. We get the green flag here at Donington Park. It's a good start from the front row from Peter Berryman. He's going to attempt to get to the outside of Spetz in towards Redgate for the first time, but Ted Bradbury sends it in there from P3 up into P2 immediately. Berryman's looking behind now because Fairclough has got himself down his inside as they descend down the Craner curves for the first time, side by side with P3. Coming on the entry to the old hairpin, Berryman losing 2 spots within the space of 1 sector. Fantastic move though from Bradbury, opportunistic.
Yeah, I got to say, it was smart from Berryman not to try and leave it side by side with Deegan Fairclough coming down to the old hairpin. Emery Chihan's dropping back a couple of positions. Pebs also had an issue on the start.
Bradbury to the race lead, just sending one down the inside of Spetz. That is fantastic stuff there from the driver that started in P3. Coming towards the end of lap number 1, he leads the race, and now Spetz has to look behind to try and defend potentially into the chicane from Fairclough. Fairclough deciding to remain behind for now on the brakes into the chicane. What a chaotic start. I pretty much only saw what happened at the very front there. Further down the order, there seems to be an equal amount of chaos.
Yeah, I think that's Josh Ladd, isn't it? No, it's Ryan McAuliffe coming into the pit lane. Oh my goodness, the dramas have gotten worse for McAuliffe into the pit lane on the first lap to serve some damage repair. Might even be a jump start, not 100% sure. But yeah, super start from Ted Bradbury to have taken over the race lead. That was a big move coming up towards McLean's. Seen that one time and time again. And sometimes, especially in the seat of Alexander Spetz, there is no point in fighting it too hard. You just sit in the slipstream and go on the attack. Wait until later. I know this is a sprint race, but still, you've got to play the long game.
You have to. 30-minute race. These guys are racing like it's a 15-minute event here at the moment. Here's your leading pack. Deegan Fairclough on the back of Alexander Spetz. as they head in towards the second half of the lap now. And, well, this is where the big slipstream situation happens here down the back straight. Let's see if there are any moves towards the inside into the chicane. Looks like Fairclough is just cutting his losses here. Not cutting his losses, but sort of biding his time here for the moment. He doesn't want to make a risky move too early on down into the chicane where there's a high percentage chance of it potentially going oh so wrong. There's a replay of the pass to the race lead. That's Bradbury getting himself up to the pointy end. There's, on the live pictures, Bradbury out into the grass. Oh, all of that hard work has now become undone. Bradbury loses 3 spots. New race leader, it's Spets. What comes around goes around, I suppose.
Yeah, this is going to happen all the way through the race. There's going to be a lot of switches for the race lead. The slipstream just keeps you in it. I've got to say, super smart stuff from Deacon Fairclough as well, to have just been pushing Spets, not trying to make a move, focusing on the bigger picture, focusing on closing down. Oh, there's Bradbury straight down the inside of Peter Berryman, who had to jump out of the way. He loves that move down into McLean's, doesn't he? My goodness. Bradbury's on it. There's a crash in the background.
Oh. Yeah, does seem to be the case. They're going to have to get those names involved. I think it's Pete Harrod potentially has been involved in an incident here with Chris Owen, I think, in the number 4 car. There's a bit of side-by-side action going on out there on circuit as well. But yeah, unfortunately, it's Bradbury, all sorts of out of shape coming out of the final corner. Peter Berryman might now be able to come back at him around the outside of Redgate. It is possible. It's tough to do as Bradbury washes up on the exit of the corner, but most importantly keeps the position. Someone's doing a rallycross impression behind. I think that was might have been Matt Karuna.
Yeah, certainly was. Had a little bit of a move down the inside from Josh Ladd. Of course, Munster Rugby Gaming both moving forward in this race. Spets hanging on to the race lead after losing it and then gaining it back again after a little bit of a look. Let's take a look as to what happened on replay. Well, there was certainly air between them two as they were both sent off. 21, you were absolutely right, was Pete Harrod, Chris Allen, who was the one who was down the inside. Those things happen coming into that corner. It's very easy to get into the side of another car at that point, especially when you dive it down the inside. The top 2 are looking to clear away, but Deacon Fairclough's going for the race lead.
Indeed he is. He looks to the inside. This is the move he's been nervous about over the past couple of laps, but sends it down and in. You've got to be careful of those curbs on the insides there. With these cars being as small as they are, they're like mountains. But Spets has the run off the corner to come straight back at him to the outside through Redgate. He's not going to be able to get clear by the time the braking zone arrives, so the advantage switches back in the favour of Deacon. Deacon's going to squeeze him off the corner, forces Spets out into the grass. Here comes Ted Bradbury back to the pointy end of the field, yo-yoing up and down the field. This is crazy stuff from the number 53. Gets to the inside for the old hairpin and gets back up into the race lead. This is crazy action.
Yeah, and this will be like I said, all the way through the race, or at least until there is an incident. And I'd almost say it's an inevitability in races like this. You've got Luke McEwen as well, trying to dive one in on the rear end of Spets. Bradbury, then the race leader. Deacon Fairclough, though, better launch on the run up towards Coppice to the inside. It's a brave corner to send it, but the up and under tends to work its way towards Bradbury out the inside line. This could be bad for Fairclough. Might go back a few positions here. Might get freight trains coming down into the Goddard chicane.
The draft is real, everyone. Let's just say that. Berryman looking to the inside of Fairclough. There's a slight gap there for him to work with, but Fairclough had to take such an alternate line through there. He's slow off the corner now as we're looking towards the inside here for Peter Berryman. Look at this swarm of cars here, Lewis. 3 wide in towards turn number 1 with Fairclough in the middle. Berryman now falls back into a battle with Spets. Josh Ladd's now getting himself involved. He's got his teammate ahead of him, which is definitely a benefit. Luke McEwen and Karuna on the outside of this looking in. Still 2 by 2 down the Karuna curves. It's the old hairpin. And we can breathe.
Yeah, Spets was to the outside. You've got Karuna as well, getting past Josh Ladd. This is what we're looking at right now. Got to the outside, running up towards McLean's, but then the switch over from Josh Ladd. It is a tight and testy battle pack indeed. There's Landis as well, now with Goda as well. This is a very, very tight train. I don't even know where to begin with this. Peja Pev, after his poor start, has rejoined the rear end of it. The train kind of split apart over the first couple laps. It's coming back together again. That's the joy of slipstream battling, but the top 2 have now got a 1 second lead. Bradbury and Fairclough over Peter Berryman, and this might make the train panic just a touch.
Yeah, we have had one retirement in this race, by the way. Mira Schmidt out of the first race. Single car mistake into the chicane. Just climbed up over the curb a little bit too much, and unfortunately, she has to take, watch the rest of this race from the pit lane. But battle going on, though. Luke McEwen versus Alexander Spets. Like you said, this front pack has been spread out a little bit more. There was almost a little bit of contact between Spets and McEwen there in through the old hairpin. But look at the run. Look at the speed that McEwen was able to carry through there. He gets the driver's right-hand side once again. We've got support, though, has Spets from Josh Ladd from behind, but not sure how much Josh Ladd can affect this at the moment, as he might even look to the inside here. No, he's just going to stay in line.
Yeah, McEwen might help his teammate Peter Berryman here by just holding up the entire train behind, allowing the top three to clear off. But McEwen's got his own aspirations in this race. He's focused on the title as well. No, we're only in the first race, but I do normally get ahead of myself on that one. Matt Carona goes down the inside of Josh Ladd, coming down to Goddard. Again, I'm liking this from some of the sim races at the moment, that as soon as someone's taking a look, they're kind of like backing out, as you would expect, but it's just giving you a better drive. You can kind of just see it just behind the tower. Josh Ladd's got straight back down the inside of McEwen, coming up towards the first corner at the moment. Carana and Josh Ladd as well, side by side behind this. Super stuff. There's a crash in the background. I think that was Gouda.
Indeed it was, and well, the battle continues down the curves between McEwen and Spets. Yes, Spets later on the brake slightly into the old hairpin, back end out, able to gather it all up though. But like you mentioned there, Lewis, there was an incident going on behind there, which we will be lining up the replay for, as McEwen still looks all over the back of Spets. Take us through this, Lewis.
Yeah, where to even begin? Got a couple of Fordzillas in the middle of it, and there was contact. I think it was the car on the inside that just sort of come up a little bit. I mean, it's a tricky one. That's what happens when you get three wide into Redgate. So, yeah, 50-50 on that one. I'm sure Race Control will be taking a look or dealing with it post-race, during the race, however they wish to do so. As we look to the battle for fourth at the moment, Spets, McEwen, Ladd, Garana, and just basically the entire grid. Why not?
Go and well, down the front straight. Oh, Ladd moves to the inside. McEwen tried to defend it though. Ladd found the gap, found the overlap, but Karuna, like a piranha, on the outside looking in to try and pick up any pieces that these guys might fall into. Down the hill, Ladd still has a slight overlap to the inside of the old hairpin. He's got to be careful he doesn't get his nose chopped off there, and Karuna almost runs into the back of him as well. Stacks up Deslanders and Armstrong behind all these guys.
Yeah, they've got to be careful. Armstrong, by the way, has done a great job to rise up the order in that JHR development car. They've got to be careful with the damage on this car. It's not, it runs the UI racing damage, although it has done for quite a while, and it is fairly sensitive to it. You can keep up in the slipstream. You damage the front wing, you can keep up in the slipstream. Nice angle, Josh Ladd, as we look, turn your head and you'll be all right. But with this car, if you get damage on the front wing, it can make you, to be honest, it can make it a little bit faster in certain very specific scenarios. But if you damage that front wing, the moment that you pull out of the slipstream to go for a move, you're basically dead in the water. You've got no straight line speed. You have to be careful. You have to look after that front wing. Meanwhile, Deegan Fairclough, boom, taking over the race lead.
Indeed, so new race leader once again, and well, it seems like the race leader is a bit of a hot potato over the course of this race. It's been shared by multiple drivers here already, and we still have 20 minutes to go here in this one. And, well, potentially so much more action as well. Spets leads from McEwen, from Ladd. Excuse me, I got that completely wrong. Fairclough leads from Bradbury, from Berryman in this situation. I got my battle packs mixed up a little bit there. I do apologize. But yeah, these guys have been absolutely fantastic. Everyone involved with this has shown how much fantastic action we can get here in sim racing, and just goes to show how exciting it can be, and just as, if not more exciting than the real world drivers. Here's the onboard with Peter Berryman though, in third place in the number 50 Apex Racing Team car. Started second, has maintained himself in that front pack rather well. He sort of had the chaos happening around him for the most part. He hasn't been pressing forward too much himself, but he might have the space to do so in the second half of this race, especially if it's just going to be these three at the front.
Well, you've got to remember between... Oh, goodness me, as we go on the area, it's got down towards the old hairpin, the old classics. Josh Ladd down the inside of Luke McEwen, going side by side. There might be contact here, just a touch as McEwen's just squeezed off, and of course Caruana might try and make it 3 wide on the run up towards McLean's. Super stuff indeed. Delandis picks up position on Caruana. Meanwhile, Josh Ladd to the inside. The 2 Apex Racing Academy cars drop in line. I was going to say, of the top 3, Peter Berryman is the more senior, but I think in a race like this, that is 100% what you need. The maturity, the experience to kind of go, actually, I don't need to fight for this right now. We've got 3 seconds of the cars behind. Let's relax.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the attitude you got to take at this stage, especially with how chaotic the initial part of this race has been. In the middle, you got to settle down at some point and just try and run your laps. But sometimes you may not even get that opportunity if cars are all over the back of you behind. What's happened to Fairclough, though, he's just lost the race lead in through turn number 1. So it's Ted Bradbury back up into the race lead. Berryman was able to steal 2nd place away as well. I think it might have been potentially an incident through turn 1 for Fairclough, even though it's not a catastrophic one. He might have just pushed wide, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it might have been a dive bomb from Bradbury and then just ran out wide himself. If not, might have just been, like you said, a solo mistake. We're about to find out, because here is Deegan Fairclough under pressure. There was no look from Bradbury. He's just used a little bit too much of what is the left-hand side of the circuit. Just picked him a little bit of the grass. Like you said, that is a tiny, it's a wake-up call more so than anything else. 17 minutes, head back in the game, pick up the slipstream of Peter Berryman. All good.
Yeah, that's so important for him, maintaining the slipstream of the 2 leading cars, keeping himself in that battle pack. As long as you're in that leading pack, you have a decent chance of winning this race. It's also worth noting, for those positions 5th to 10th, those are the sort of positions that might benefit from a reverse grid pole position, potentially. So it's worth keeping an eye on the battles around here, because, well, one of them might get quite lucky and start pole for race 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, you want to start and you want to finish in the top 5, not just for the points, but also for the guaranteed position as Armstrong straight down the inside of Delandis. That is a beautiful move. Delandis going to be out a little bit wide. Jamie Fluke's going to pick up a spot as well. Watch out for Stepanov also behind in that Team Fordzilla machine. Love those colours. But Jamie Fluke gets past his junior teammate in the Apex Racing Team Academy. So Fluke up inside the top 10 with a 9th place at the moment. But that was a great move from Armstrong.
Yeah, clean, no worries whatsoever. And, well, we're on board Flanders then in this situation. Let's see how he forwards here. He's got Oliver Stepanov all over the back of him on the way down into the chicane. That Team Fordzilla car big in the mirrors, that's for sure. But it seems like the Flanders has been able to hold on quite comfortably here and can potentially follow through in the tyre tracks of his teammate ahead of him to try and improve positions here. Jamie Fluke up into 9th place compared to a 14th place start. However, one of the biggest movers, if not the biggest mover in this race, James Armstrong, started 18th. He's up to 8th, net gain of 10.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant race so far from the JHR Developments driver right now. There he is, right in the middle of the shot, the number 47 of Armstrong. Next one up the road is Caruana. But I think this is the move where it's kind of like, do you go for it, or do you do what we saw from Deegan Fairclough earlier on in the race when he was sat behind of Spets and sat on the rear end and pushed that car ahead and just focused on the train ahead of that. At the moment, Armstrong's in 8th. 7th place is Caruana, but there is a train about a second clear of them at the moment in that battle between Spets, Ladd, and Luke McEwen as well. I'd want to be a part of that fight. I don't really care about 7th place right now. I care about 4th. I care about that fight ahead.
Eyes forward only, it seems, in this situation. But we've got ourselves to the halfway point of the race now. Just under 15 minutes to go before we see the conclusion of our first ever race here in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. It's been so fun so far, and well, more action continues on. James Armstrong trying to get himself past Mike Karuna here. He's done a relatively good job so far, but has to try and finish it down the inside of the old hairpin as Karuna attempting around the outside. Big slide. Well recovered as well, and the battle continues, still wheel to wheel coming up the hill. Jamie Fluke behind, looking to try and see if he can find a route through on this. Not at the moment, as Armstrong pushes a little bit wide, allows Karuna to get himself back to the inside here. This is great action, and where does that Apex Racing team car fit into this one? Fluke's looking all over the back of these two, trying to find a route through, as Armstrong is still able to hold on for now. And into the braking zone for the chicane. Potentially some team-on-team action going on back there as well between Fluke and Deslanders.
Yeah, Delanda had a really bad exit because of Jamie Flute going in a little bit wide, missing the apex, the first apex at Goddards completely. Is going to cost him a position, potentially to Stepanov. Doesn't do so in towards the first corner at Redgate. I've got to say, whilst that was, I mean, lovely battle, great seeing it side by side through the old hairpin, up through McLean's coppice, etc., etc., etc. It's not conducive to good lap times though, and they've lost a fair amount. Like I was saying about that battle for fourth place, that might even end up being the battle for the race lead, because they are starting to close a little bit on Berryman, Bradbury and Fairclough, but now this train is almost guaranteed not to be a part of it, unfortunately.
Well, we've still got a decent amount of time, 13 minutes left in this event. The laps do tick by very, very quickly, though. They're only doing, what, 1 minute 4s in terms of the fastest laps. Some of them dipping, of course, into the 1 minute 5s here as well. So still a pretty quick pace out there, and it's certainly fantastic to see these drivers going at 110% here in the race. But as far as leading pack is concerned, it does seem like Fairco and Bradbury potentially might be pushing each other down the straights here. It's very tough to do here in these cars, in any open wheeler. In fact, any typical road racing car is very difficult to do. It's usually what you'd see in the American ovals of NASCAR and the like. But it seems like Bradbury is really pressing that nose potentially into the rear end of Fairco down the straights.
Yeah, lovely angle to see this from, obviously up on the tee box, but you know when they're racing, as in iRacing, it's locked cockpit, so you're sat in the car. It's very hard to judge where the front of your car is, and it's so easy to kind of get into the rear end of the car ahead. I will say though, as we ride on board properly with Bradbury to really get an idea of what that's like, he's well experienced in this car. Almost any time I race the IRO4, Ted Bradbury's in the race, and he's normally right at the front as well. Incredibly fast at the moment. But Deacon Fairclough, having retaken over that race lead, I mean, he's, for his age, only 16 years old at the moment is Deacon Fairclough. A super talented driver, got a super future as well ahead of him, not only in the world of sim racing, potentially even in the world of motorsport as well, after winning the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports competition UK. I don't know where we're going to see this kid in future, but he is a proper quick peddler right now, and I reckon right at the highest end of the ranks.
Yeah, I would certainly argue that fact as well. What factors into this battle, though, is further down the road, we have our first piece of lap traffic. That's Azzy Ardale, who's not had the most ideal times here in race number 1. She's going to be the first piece of lap traffic that these guys will come up on. So that's going to be an interesting situation here. It's such a short lap time where it's definitely a possibility, even coming into this, that we would see lap traffic become a problem, especially if there had been early incidents, which there have been. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys negotiate that.
Yeah, not easily. It's always a stressful process. But that was okay. It's just whether it becomes an issue later on. At the moment, obviously, playing things very nicely there, and you need the lap traffic to show you that kind of respect when you're in a tight fight like this. It's so easy to trip over yourselves when you're looking down the inside. You're trying to think, how do I get past this back marker? And you almost forget about the other drivers that are around you.
Yeah, you do. But in that instance, all the lapping procedure went all very smoothly as he pulled out of the way of this leading trio. So definitely not wanting to get involved here, and well, that's more race preservation on the part of lap traffic as well. You know, you don't want to be that person that ruins things for the lead lap cars. So that's motivation enough to get out of the way, even though it might not be. You might not have to do it in as drastic of a fashion.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you don't have to jump out of the way that aggressively. It's just sometimes you might pick up some handy respect from the race leaders and a bit of a show of respect post race. I mean, those kind of things not really easy to deal with when you're a back marker. There's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and it's so easy to make a mistake. But it is one of those things. Ted Bradbury, though, looking for the race lead this time. I think 10 minutes to go is now his time to charge.
Oh, and here comes Peter Berryman as well, just following through in the tyre tracks of Bradbury. So Fairco dropping to the rear end of this leading trio. And, well, we'll have to see if this configuration changes in the last 9 minutes of the race. I get the feeling it is. I get the feeling this is going to be very, very hard fought. However, all of this leading three are being caught currently by Spets, by Ladd, by McEwen. It might turn up to be a humongous, well, a humongous in the context of racing, 6-car train for the race lead by the time this is done.
Yeah, it's a tight one. Doing some other competitions and whatnot in the IRA for just commentary-wise, at any high level. But I don't know what it was, but through quite a lot of tracks, 6 was the magic number. 6 was about as many as you could get in one group. More than that, and it was too many, and you'd end up having 1 or 2 dropping off the rear end of it, and then a few less is fine. But 6 was always the number it kind of ended up being, so it kind of feels about right that it's going to be 6 here. Deacon Fairclough not happy with 3rd place at the moment, straight down the inside of Berryman. It's going to allow Ted Bradley to clear off just a touch. Berryman out wide. Fairclough down the inside before they even get down towards Hollywood. Nice little move. Cost him a little bit of time, but no big deal. Back into the slipstream.
Yeah, still within, within 0.6 of a second here. That's definitely within the slipstream range of these cars. They are very, very drafty, these machines. You know, even on a straight such as the back straight here at Donington Park, they can pick up a huge speed delta, being the car behind. So I definitely wouldn't worry at the moment if you're Fairclough and Berryman, at least in that aspect. But what I would worry about if I were them are the drivers of Spets, Ladd and McEwen, who have now basically established this 6-car train.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you're in Spets' boots, you know, you've had pole position, you've dropped back from that, you felt like this race hasn't really gone your way, and yet suddenly, 7 minutes left to go until the checkered flag, you've been given an opportunity to potentially wrestle your way back into this competition in a big way to go after the victory. Stepanov and Caruana switch over the final points-paying positions, by the way, 10th spot, of course, but still, as well, our attention really is on the lead battle, a 6-car fight, 7 minutes. Are we going to be seeing the checkered flag with all 6 of these intact? I'm not 100% sure myself.
If you were to say yes, I think you'd be very optimistic in that situation. It's all been very clean and fair for now, but with the way these drivers have been racing, I wouldn't say that might be a theme here at the very end of the race. Stepanov. The driver ahead of Stepanov, that was Armstrong potentially. No, it wasn't Armstrong. It was Caruana keeping hold of the car. As someone's off. Fairclough's off. Oh no, what's happened here? Just as we look away from it, one of the race leaders decides to go and bin it, and unfortunately, at least from my view of it, it seems like no one else was involved and it was all his own doing. That's a big shame, and now he's potentially going to lose more positions here because Caruana gets himself to the outside into the chicane. Fairclough keeps himself ahead out into the grass, though. Oh, this is all just compounding with the mistakes now, as Stepanov might potentially make it 3 wide down the inside.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit dicey as well. Like I said, straight down the inside, Stepanov goes for Fairclough right now. If there's any damage on the car or anything like that, overheated tyres, whatever it is, even if it's just mentally, just needs to calm himself down, get himself back into the race. He's got straight back down the inside of Stepanov, but this is a risky moment coming down to the old hairpin. Kind of needs to wrestle his way through just to try and get some points back. Fairclough down the inside takes over 10th position. Caruana 9th spot. Next target up ahead, a couple of points up for grabs. Like I say, yeah, costly moment there for Deacon Fairclough. I was just chatting to the guy that's helped him on setup through all this. Of course, you might know Dylan Scrivens, obviously Becky, the man himself. Dylan Scrivens, who's plenty talented in the world of sim race, has been helping Fairclough throughout the week, and like I say, won't be too pleased to see that one right on the rear end. Ooh, that is bad luck. That is tremendously bad luck. He did not deserve that. Deacon Fairclough almost lightly into the back of Bradbury, but we all saw it.
Indeed. That's a big shame there from Fairclough. He was looking so competitive here in race number 1. Still in the event. Still might be on for a reverse grid pole, by the way. He's in that 5th to 10th place range as he gets past Caruana up into 9th. So this still might turn out to be a decent situation for Fairclough as long as he doesn't drop any further down the order. In this active battle with Caruana, Caruana still has an overlap on the inside of the old hairpin. Stepanov gets the run on as the third party involved in this one. He gets to the left-hand side, gets himself past Caruana, might be able to challenge around the outside of Fairclough as well. Very optimistic coming into here, not able to do it. He's just trying to focus on keeping himself ahead of Caruana. Now he's got his team Fordzilla Tibe of Chian also on the outside looking into this as well. So reinforcements have arrived for Stepanov and takes the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah, like you say, it's you got to kind of lean on these battles and think what extra pressure is on their shoulders. 9th, 10th, like you said before, it's the reverse grid spot. So Spets gets his way past Peter Berryman. Oh, it could be wide out for Berryman, though, almost into the side of Josh Flagg coming through Redgate and down at Hollywood. That was a risky moment into T1, but Spets retakes over second position.
Yeah, indeed he does, and well, I get the feeling that these drivers in this front train, they could come across the line in any configuration, and we're only 3.5 minutes from doing so here, so not too long before we decide our first race winner in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. And, well, it could be Bradbury, could be Berryman, could be Spets, could be Lads, could even be McEwen as well. Or if everything goes to pot in that leading train, then maybe an outside chance for JB Fluke as well. But we'll just have to wait and see. Only a handful of laps to go as far as the timing goes here at the end of this race at Donington. A sluggish run through the final corner, though, for Bradbury gives the advantage to Spets. He's able to close in that couple of tenths of a second gap on the way in towards Redgate. Game's certainly on here, Lewis. Who's your pick?
Ooh, tricky one. 3 laps to go. I am going to go... I've got to go Ted Bradbury, actually. I know he's the race leader right now. He's under pressure from Spets, but his aggression, the level that he shows, he is such a quality driver. Spets trying to take over the race lead, but the outside of the old hairpin's not normally the ideal one. But I just think Bradbury's got the experience and knowledge in this car. Maybe that's just jinxed him, though. Who knows? I don't believe in the commentator's curse. I only believe in bad driving. You know me.
Gets backed around. 360 points for style, I suppose, but it was Josh Ladd that got into the back of him, perhaps not expecting Berryman to swerve across the circuit in the fashion that he did. Drama with 2 minutes to go, at least for Berryman. Unlikely to take the race win now for him. But Bradbury, Spets, Ladd and McEwen all still in this one as they head their way out the final corner. Looks like it's going to be 2 laps to go.
Fairclough having issues here again. I think there's been more problems for the Racing Star driver right now. He's dropped back even further. And now he's definitely out of contention for the reverse grid. He's out of contention for the points. We'll take a look at this again.
Oh. Yeah, not quite clear to move across like that. Not quite. I mean, you have to leave a bit of a buffer because of quote-unquote internet racing as well. Sometimes you can't cut things as close as that.
Yeah, we'll see what happened to Deegan Fairclough as well on the exit to Coppice. Pushing very, very hard. Too hard indeed. Got out onto the grass. That is not the last time we'll see that today. I'm absolutely sure it's very easy to do around here. We've seen that in real life not that long ago. So, and I suspect I'll see it this weekend at Donington Park over the weekend as well. It's so easy to do. Got to be said, though, I think with that thing from Berryman, it's tricky. The run into McLean's kind of leads. Yeah, if you're taking that tight line, you tend to push out over onto the right-hand side. Fair enough, that happens. But you're going to get tapped if you do so.
Final lap. This is it. Bradbury and Spets at the front of the order. Bradbury feeling the need to go ultra defensive in towards Redgate, allows Spets to take that wider arc through the corner. He gets the best speed coming off through Hollywood and now down the Craner curves. Where is Spets going to make this move? He looks to the outside for the alter hairpin, covered off eventually by Bradbury. He's certainly going to try and make that Formula 4 car the widest F4 spec car that has ever existed, but Spets gets himself to driver's left-hand side. It's tough to do it around the outside through here. Oh, gets his nose cut off there. Does Spets, gets out of shape over the curb. Here comes Josh Ladd down the inside of his teammate here. This might have signed, sealed and delivered things here for Ted Bradbury's. It looks like it potentially might be a race for second place instead. It looks like McEwen's been boxed in by the 2 teammates on the way down towards the end of the back straight. McEwen looking to the inside, can't get things done, but it is Ted Bradbury. No, it's not Ted Bradbury. Oh, he does dive into the pit lane. He does take the race win. I think he kind of duped us here, although saying that, he potentially might have gotten himself a drive-through penalty for incident limit, and Josh Ladd in session comes across the line to take the race win. What has gone on there?
Yeah, I think Ted Bradbury, I think you're absolutely right, has done something to have got himself a drive-through penalty, which he had to serve on the last lap, even though that doesn't count. And Ted Bradbury from the race lead, that almost is commentator's guess, I'll almost allow that one. But either way, it does become a Munster Rugby Gaming 1-2 in the race. Ladd, Spets, first and second. I mean, what a crazy start of the season.
This is it. Bradbury, I thought he was just kind of joking around with us trying to cross the line in the pit lane, but no, this was intentional because he needed to save a drive-through penalty. Either way, for an unserved drive-through penalty, he was going to get shuffled back through the order anyway. But, you know, even if he did come across the line with that still pending, a confusing end to our first race of the season, that's for sure. It certainly duped me here in the commentary booth, but it is a Monster Rugby Gaming 1-2. Josh Ladd, Alexander Spetz taking the maximum points for their team here at the end of the first race at Donington Park. You don't want to go away because we do have a second race, and it will be, of course, the starting grid for that race will be based on a reverse grid on the results of this race number 1. Where does the spinny wheel land? However, who gets themselves onto pole position for race 2? It might be the largest number. 10 might get themselves on pole position. That's Oliver Stepanov in 10th place, who gets himself to the front for race 2.
Yeah, that was really crawling at the end. That wheel needs some slightly better brakes, but absolutely right. 10th place, the maximum reverse grid. Stepanov and Gowther on the front row could have been Fairclough after, you know, without that issue. Interestingly, though, Stepanov probably didn't even realise he was finished in 10th because it's only happened because of the penalty that was given out to Bradbury.
Yeah, that's crazy. What a first race that we've had here. We've had drama left, right, and center. Josh Ladd, though, takes the race win for Monster Rugby Gaming. Alex Betts makes it a 1-2 for those guys, so a great start to the season for Monster Rugby Gaming. We have a race 2, of course, to be concerned about as well. Great finishes from the Apex Racing cars as well. Luke McEwen actually getting the best of the primary team drivers there, finishing 3rd place with Pierre Berryman in 4th and Jamie Fluke in 5th. Sandy Deslanders in P6 with James Armstrong in P7. Emery Sheehan, Dion Gowda, and Oliver Stepanov round out the top 10. Of course, Stepanov gets himself a reverse grid pole position. Pete Harrod in P11 with Tegan Fairclough. What could have been for Tegan in this race, but a few too many mistakes, I'm afraid, puts him down into P12. Peo Pev in P30 with Ted Bradbury P14. Matt Karuna in P15. Or Caruana, excuse me, as I will try and get my pronunciations right here today. 16th place goes to Monica Ramos, and then Azzy Aradel in P17. P18 goes to Carl Chase with Maya Niklev in P19, and P20 goes to Kian Goho. And then our other non-finishers, Chris Owen in P21, Lewis Apiegi in P22, and Mia Schmidt rounds out the 23rd spot here. And everyone involved everyone lower than P10 will start race 2 exactly where they finished in race number 1.
Yeah, which is the joy of reverse grid races, is that if you've had a bad race 1, sorry mate, you got to start there once more. And like I said, for the likes of Tegan, Fairclough and whatnot, they'll have to be starting down the order. As you can see here, Luke McEwen, I think after all the pushing, the pumping and scraping and whatnot, got a bit of a damage on the front wing of his Apex Racing Academy. I'm sure I didn't really hold him back too much from taking victory. 3rd place, still great points. And the top 2, I mean, considering we've said before that this championship class is drivers related, teams play a big factor. The big prizes are on the team's side of things. That's a big way to start the season with a 1-2.
Oh, I think we just got to take a moment to catch our breaths here, Lewis, because we've had a very chaotic race number 1. We've got race 2 coming up here in a bit as well. The race stewards, the race administrators, all trying to get themselves that sorted for our drivers to join and us to bring you the action. But like I said, what a start to the season here in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. It's definitely better than I could have imagined, at least as far as the first race is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've raced these cars a fair few times. I've seen them race plenty of times also. It's a super raceable car. All of the tracks that we're visiting over the season will race very differently, mine. But trust me, all of them will race very well in a car like this. Donington's such a great circuit to open the season on. So wide, so open. And I mean, look at the first few laps. Look at Ted Bradbury over those first couple to have made a move down into Redgate, to have made a move down into McLean's. I know, obviously, finishing outside of the points in that race. But if I'm any driver and I've seen any of that through the race, you know, in race 2, starting from outside the top 10 is going to go super aggressive. I'm all up for that show.
Yeah, I absolutely am as well. Fairclough is going to be one of those drivers that's starting from outside the top 10. He was so quick in that first race. It'll be very interesting to see how he tries to progress through this field in race number 2, because that's a lot of passes to try and attempt over the course of 30 minutes. Well, James Armstrong showed that you could gain 11 positions in the space of 30 minutes. It might have to be the same thing for Fairclough, which will happen to get him up into P1 if he does so.
Yeah, I think the important thing with races like this is almost to take it one step at a time, which sounds simple, sounds crazy, but you got to remember a lot of this grid, they are quite young, right? A lot of them 16, 17, 18 years old. They are aggressive. They're not really used to thinking 30 minutes ahead. They're used to thinking one lap ahead. What's next? And they'll go after the move straight away. And sometimes in races, it's not really the best way. I kind of feel that if Peter Berryman was still in that battle later in the race, obviously after the spin that he had, the experience that he has, especially in a race that might actually pay dividends, because I don't feel he's the kind of driver that's going to go for something ridiculously outlandish. He's going to take any major risk. He's going to pick people off one at a time, likely to see him up on the podium potentially.
Yeah, potentially. He's definitely, I would say, probably the most experienced driver out there in terms of sim racing here today. And like you said, that experience really does come into its own in situations just like that, where the pressure is so high. It potentially might be a battle for the race lead, battle for a podium spot, whatever it may be. That's where that knowledge of all those races you've done previous, all those championships that you've won or come close to winning, that is what really factors in. It's not going to be a strange sensation to someone like Peter Berryman, like it would be some of our younger drivers who may not have raced at this level of competition before.
Yeah, I mean, this is a high level. Like I said, the grid is incredibly competitive. The prize money on the line, don't get me wrong, it's not millions, but still, when you start racing and you kind of understand that taking a few race wins and you're dealing with thousands of pounds, you're dealing with big prizes. That, like I say, for an older driver that has had the experience, that has had big events in sim racing where they've taken part in prize pools of a similar degree, maybe even larger. This is kind of like, yeah, cool, I'm fine mentally. For those that this might be the first time they're racing in a series with major prize pool, it's a struggle. It really is a struggle mentally when you're dealing with it for the first time, and it's kind of like fight or flight, isn't it? Sometimes you just deal with it straight away and it's brilliant. Other times you really struggle to deal with that pressure.
Would there be any driver in that first race that you were surprised by?
To be fair, Spets' fight back was very impressive. Spets and obviously I know 1-2. Yeah, great. They finished 1-2. Sure, that is the expected fight back, knowing how good they were. But they did drop a large way off of the train. They kept their head clear, and they started to work as a team to move their way forward, sticking with each other. Outside of that, Luke McEwen, who we're normally used to racing in GT3s and whatnot, super effort in the Formula 4s. Then slightly more on the negative side. Now, I know obviously there was some issues early on in the race. McAuliffe, one driver I'd really look at, really strong in these kind of cars. Normally races with Ted Bradbury and whatnot in these cars. Obviously didn't qualify very well, and then was thrown back into the pit lane right at the end of the first lap. So a little bit disappointed on that side. Expecting to see them moving forward in this race if they can keep their noses clean.
Yeah, seeing, you mentioned the name, Ted Bradbury work his way through the field, potentially in this second race, will be one to keep an eye on. So we've got multiple drivers in this second race, very much out of position. So for those drivers who are potentially usually mid-pack runners, of course we can't come to that assessment. We've only had one race in the season, so it's not a lot to base things on. But for those drivers that at least finished mid-pack on merit in that race one, how do you approach that sort of situation when you have these faster drivers around you? Because sometimes it may be prudent to try and follow through in the tire tracks, let them make the moves, and you could try and follow in behind them. But you might be on the opposite end of that, being the car trying to defend from someone so quick. It must be so tough.
Oh yeah, in races like this, I mean, I've done it before, like with friends and whatnot. You go racing in a car like this, and you kind of think, you've qualified a few positions behind. We'll hook up after the first couple laps, and we'll just work together through the race. It'll be fine. Don't try any of that. Just do not let the race happen naturally. That's kind of the important thing with a race like this, is that it's pack racing, right? I mean, you were given the NASCAR analogies earlier on, but this is 100% pack racing. You don't really see it too much in road course races, but around this kind of circuit, in these kind of cars, you've kind of just got to let things happen naturally, which sometimes a driver is terrifying. That's a terrifying prospect. Everyone likes to come into a race with a game plan. I'm in second place. I'm gonna hold on to second place into the first corner. I'm not gonna attack for the race lead. I'm just gonna let the laps unfold and then attack late on. Like, nice little game plan. Or I'm gonna pick one position up through the race, and one position up per lap through the race, and we'll end up fighting for the podium later on. Another good game plan. That doesn't apply in this scenario. You've kind of just got to see the green flag, you've got to see the red lights go out, and you've got to go, right, let's try and fight our way through this. This race is going to be chaos in, hopefully, all of the best ways.
Well, hopefully a majority of those first race nerves have now somewhat been dealt with. We're into our second race of the season, and that might cause drivers to be a bit calmer, but it also, like you said, might have the complete opposite effect, where drivers feel like, okay, now I've got that first race out of the way, let's just go forward, try and get these positions, let's try and have fun. So I definitely agree with you in the sense that this race maybe we thought the first race was exciting, but this second race might be absolutely off the charts with regards to that. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah. But we will just have to wait and see. It's another 30-minute event with a reverse grid as well, which comes with its own sorts of nuances. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. With a reverse grid as well, you have the benefit of potentially getting a surprise race winner at the end of it as well, which would be fantastic to see.
Yeah, you've got to remember that we're going to see them all in one big train. I think it was, you were saying there about those in the mid-pack earlier on. Obviously now, they finished 11th, 10th. Well, you finished 10th in this race, or in the previous race. Suddenly, you were a mid-pack runner, and now you're a front runner in the race. Now, with the level of ability on the field, I genuinely believe at least 3/4 of the field, right, are absolutely there to they've got the ability level to take a victory in the right circumstance, because slipstream is king. It keeps you up with everyone ahead. Fair enough. Those other ones behind, the other quarter, I mean, they're more than decent enough to grab points. No one's here making up the numbers. Everyone's a quality driver. So it's kind of hard to see like a mid-pack runner, and I'm not so sure about surprise winners, because I think everyone has that sort of level of ability to take a victory. That said, I wouldn't necessarily rule out, even genuinely, hand on heart, even something like back-to-back victories in a championship list, because you can absolutely make the moves up even around here. You've just got to be careful not to trip up over people as you're rising up the order. That's kind of like the big thing. You've got to accept in a reverse grid like this, there is potential for a fairly substantial crash early on, and you've got to make sure that you're on essentially the right side of history when it comes to that crash.
That might potentially be the sticking point, that's for sure, coming into this second race. While we're getting that all set up, it might be with us thanking our title sponsor of ROKiT for bringing us the action here today. They do so in the real world, of course, as well. Thank you very much to SimuCube for their support. We've got Base Performance, we've got the Virtual Reality Racing Club, and World Sim Racing as well, who are providing the stewarding and the organization to make this this series happen. So thank you very much to everyone involved in this one. Thank you to Motorsports UK as well. We're not quite done just yet. Of course, at the very end of the season, we of course will crown a winner, and of course they will actually be an official British champion in the eyes of Motorsports UK. That is an accolade in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any sort of to be fair, most of the drivers on this grid have a pretty impressive accolade to their name. I wouldn't even know where to begin with the list that we've got. I mean, again, we've got a Guinness World Record holder on the grid. I don't know what it's for, but it was on that entry list. I was like, whoa, hello. I've commentated on a few people with like some very odd, like, just general real world stuff, like whether it's in motorsport or just generally. Because this is the thing with this kind of sport mode. We've got talented people. They're not just generally talented at sim racing, at driving. They're talented generally, and they're normally quite good at a few other things. So, yeah, fair enough on that one.
Well, look, I've been in sim racing commentary for 6 years at this point. I'm 25 now. I'll be 26 in a couple of days, by the way. Just dropping it out there.
Happy birthday!
Birthday on Monday, yeah. But I see some of these younger drivers coming in. Even younger than 18, 16, 15, and they're mega quick and way faster than I could have been if I put my mind to it. So we always have this young talent coming through, and that's what National Series, British Air 4, for example, that's what they're meant to promote, these young drivers coming through. These are the next drivers that you'll see at the top levels of real world racing, you know, in WC and Formula One, you know, these are where the drivers are sort of molded in series like this. And well, British F4 is certainly like that for the real world. Maybe this series could be like that for sim racing as well. And of course, there's a lot of cross-pollination between real-life drivers and sim drivers, trying each other's disciplines as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you go and look at a lot of the sim drivers and whatnot, a lot of the younger talent that's coming up, quite a lot of them have got real-world motorsports, especially the ones that are the really, really fast ones. I mean, Joseph Loke takes part in sim racing a fair amount. Alex Dunn, of course, champion, does take part in sim racing an awful lot, and that's even before you start looking at some of the other drivers that have slightly older that have been in the world of motorsport for a while. They've started moving over into sim racing. It's a beautiful time to be in sim racing. But to go back to your point on the younger contingent that are coming through, obviously in the world of motorsport, the world of sim racing, we're at a really interesting time in sim racing. Very, very interesting indeed, because for the majority of the time, I don't know if you've kind of noticed it yourself, is that for the majority of time in my time in sim racing, I've been commentating on and off in sim racing and driving for nearly 10 years. It's 10 years next year. Ooh,
yeah.
Getting old.
We're all getting old.
Is that a lot of these drivers, you spent 4 or 5 years, 6 years even, seeing the same drivers at the top of every competition, right at the front, and they're almost always there. Now what we're starting to see is we're starting to see that change. We're starting to see the new guard coming in and replacing. We're starting to see that sim racing is becoming absolutely packed with talent, with a lot of these younger drivers coming through, which is, again, fantastic to see, but it is terrifying, and it's why I'm a commentator and not a driver anymore. I mean, I did the, like I said before, the ROKiT Racing Star Formula 4 Esports competition in the UK, the live event in Bolton earlier on this year, and there was 23 drivers in that, all of them 16. I've never felt so old in my entire life, and it's great to have 2 of them, of course, on the grid. But my goodness, this world of sim racing's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show that the future is bright. And it's great that these young drivers have also gotten the opportunity to get themselves involved in racing, because, you know, pretty much everyone knows that to get involved in real life racing, it's a big expense. And it's not an expense that a lot of drivers, a lot of families in a lot of cases can really afford to put their kid through a season of karting or to or any other series. And sim racing is definitely that big gateway, because there are kids that have talent behind the wheel of a race car. It's just that they never get the opportunity to show it because they just don't have the funding. And the barrier to entry for sim racing being so low is one of its benefits. It's great to see everyone getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time, like I said, not just for sim racing, but for motorsport as well, because like you say, there are more opportunities to see that talent. How many times have you got a very talented driver who's like in their mid-30s or whatever, and you kind of think, oh, what could have been with this driver 10, 15 years ago, but they ran out of budget. Like that is the case with motorsport, is that of the 99% of people that are incredibly fast, potentially even fast enough to get all the way to Formula One, right? You'll never see them. You'll never hear of them. You'll never know who they were. And it's just that 1% that had the budget, that were in the right place at the right time, and they're the ones that made the way through. Yeah, that's the industry. I mean, when you're talking of racing in real Formula 4 competition, whether it's in the British Formula 4 or even Italian F4, etc., etc., this is not like chuck a couple £100 in it and you'll be all right. You need 6 figures, right, to go racing, and comfortably into the 6 figures as well as a budget for 1 year. It's incredibly expensive. Now, what we're seeing with sim racing is that there are more and more opportunities to move through into real world motorsport, whether it's because of a test or whether it's because of whether you're just coming in as a sim driver for an actual real world team. Look at what happened with Rudy Van Buren as well. His motorsport career was pretty much done. He just done karting and whatnot, came into sim racing, did world's fastest gamer, then obviously was the McLaren sim driver, now works with Red Bull full time. Like, it's not a joke. He's not there as a marketing gimmick. He's very good at what he does, and he now works with Red Bull. He's deeply with Redline as well. It's super to see that sim racing has these opportunities now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many names you've picked. First one that comes to mind for me actually is Moritz Lohner, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
He started in sim racing. 2021, he got the opportunity to drive in the DTM Trophy in Germany, and that was a big opportunity. And there are so many stories like that with sim races transferring over into real world racing. James Baldwin, of course, perhaps one of the most famous ones. So it's a gateway for sure, and it's a gateway that wasn't available just 10 short years ago, potentially.
Yeah, again, slightly on that topic of DTM Trophy, really excited to see what Kevin Siggy does in DTM Trophy.
Oh yeah,
next year that's going to be an exciting one. But again, focusing more at home here, focusing more on British Formula 4. I'm really excited to see what Deegan Fairclough and Monica Bolton-Ramos, 2 drivers that are on the grid, of course, in the Racing Star program, what they do in British Formula 4 next year. They have they'll be driving next year. We expect. Again, it's incredible to have an opportunity like that. I know, from the pair of them, Monica Bolton-Ramos had basically no motorsport experience before receiving that opportunity, and then Deegan Fairclough had a fair amount, but it's more racing, club stuff. It's more racing, kind of like old Ford Focuses and touring car type stuff. Like nothing like a major championship, but now gets to take the step into some of those. These kind of stories, we will see more and more of them, and that's always a positive. But it's so great to be a part of this changing point in the world of sim racing and motorsport.
It really is. Well, we won't have to wait long to get another ROKiT F4 Esports Championship race. You can see the timer in the top left, 40 seconds left remaining in the warm-up session. That was a nice chat, though, Lewis. I think we should start a podcast or something at some point. But we're having a look at the track conditions here. 35 degrees Celsius on circuit at the moment. That is relatively balmy. Let's just say that wind's picking up as well. All does factor in when it comes to how these cars handle throughout the circuit. So it's definitely something to pay attention to, especially that track temperature. And potentially the, because, well, there's just less grip out there once it gets past a certain point with the track being so hot. But with time winding down and away, we'll be able to recap our starting grid for race number 2 of the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. It's coming at you here from Donington Park National Circuit. It's our first race meeting here in this inaugural season. And, well, at least for this race number 2, it might be a particularly spicy one. It is Oliver Stepanov that starts on pole position thanks to the reverse grid, however, with Dion Gauda in P2. Emre Cian will start in 3rd place with James Armstrong in 4th. Stanley Deslandis in P5 with Jamie Fluke in P6. Peter Berryman will start 7th with Luke McEwen in P8. Alexander Spetz starts P9 with Josh Ladd, our race 1 winner, starting in 10th. Pete Harrod, he narrowly misses out on a reverse grid pole position. He'll have to start in P11 with Deegan Fairclough in P12. Peo Pev in P13 with Ted Bradbury P14. Mike Caruana in P15 with Monica Ramos in P16. Iredale, Chase, Mikalev, Gohill, Owen, Apayagi and Schmidt will round out the 23 car starting grids here that we have for race number 2. It is an all-team Fordzilla front row, and you can include P3 as well. As far as Emre Cian is concerned, it's a bit of a grouping for them at the very front of the field to start off this second race at Donington Park in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. We're off and away once again. Good start from the first group of Team Fordzilla cars. James Armstrong trying to hold on to P4 because Stanley Deslandis has sent one down the inside at Redgate for the first time of asking. Deslandis is clear as far as P3 is concerned. Jamie Fluke is in the line as well with Peter Berryman slotting in behind. Seems like a rather clean start for the vast majority of the drivers, at least in the first half of the field. Lead through Redgate as well. All in order, it seems here, Lewis, and a great start from the Team Fordzilla guys up front.
Yeah, did not expect it to be that clean. It's like I said, it's a lot of Fordzilla, it's a lot of Apex. Somewhere in there is a bit of JHR developments as well. Deegan Fairclough's making up a couple of spots. There's also someone off in the background. I think that's one of the other JHR developments car. That'll be Chris Owen into McLean's. And we've also had a bit of an issue for Lewis Apayagi, I believe, on the race start. Also outside of that in the top lot. It is very tidy indeed, to be honest. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, very clean, very tidy, and well, it's a stark contrast to what we saw at the start of race number 1, let me tell you that. But across the line, oh, someone's off in the background there. Someone's backwards through the corner. Didn't quite see, I think it might have been Chris Owen again, potentially. No, I'm not seeing that correctly. It's the number 4 car, so that is Chris Owen, so he might have had another issue.
Yeah, James Armstrong and Deslander switching over positions. We're focused on Peter Berryman, who's dropping back behind Spets, looking to the outside. Got to say, Deacon Fairclough was going very aggressive in the first corner, now up to 8th position. Next opportunity for him will be McEwen as well, as they're side by side. I mean, what do we make of this? It's Armstrong to the inside of the Fordzilla of Emery Chihan.
Yeah, fantastic battle going on here, and Chihan trying to defend this one on the outside. There's not a lot of space to work with through there. Armstrong gets to run through the corner. This Landis has stuck his nose in here as well. I fear that Chihan might be a sitting duck here on the way down in towards the chicane, unless he can fight back on the outside of the first apex. He runs into the back of James Armstrong. Armstrong out into the runoff. Chihan across the gravel. That wasn't the thing that was planned, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and there is more drama after that, just with how he rejoined. I'm sure a lot of drivers coming through the chicane will be like, whoa, there's been a bit of drama. Fairclough and McEwen battling over 5th position. Spets and Berryman over 7th. Also on the exit of Redgate down towards Hollywood, you've got on the outside, that is Deacon Fairclough in the 87. Berryman drops in behind Spets right now. This is still, I mean, Spets doing a great job right now, but look at that from Ted Bradbury, who's come out of nowhere in the Arden YRDA car, and look at that out wide Spets dropping it out on the exit of the old hairpin, and now Ted Bradbury's coming through.
Oh, there's a big send to the inside from Fairclough as well, a little bit further down the road. Oh, big moves being made here. Well, it was a calm first lap, but second, third laps have been chaotic as McEwen gets bullied out of road across the gravel. Yeah, Fairclough, he's overcommitted to the corner as well. Lots of positions lost by the two of them as the battles continue on here. On the way down in towards the chicane, there's more contact. Berryman was into the back of Spets. Spets has to take the completely abort the chicane. Bradbury's involved in this one as well. A lot of top runners getting in over their heads.
And this is chaotic as well as we look at Peter Berryman on the inside. You've got McAuliffe in the middle, trying to get around the outside. Deacon Fairclough's trying to make it stick, and that was never going to work. 4 wide into there. Come on, lads.
Yeah, this has become a little bit too much now. Oh, 4 wide into Redgate. That, like you said, that never works whatsoever. And Fairclough on the outside is the unfortunate driver that got initially collected. It was a slight side-by-side contact between Pev and Caruana as the middle 2 cars in that situation. But yeah, they were always going to come together there, as there's a move down the inside for Stepanov, getting past this Landis up into 2nd place.
Yeah, I mean, again, this has been a crazy race. This has been pretty much... Lap 1 was definitely not what I was expecting, so it was actually really clean. From that point on, yeah, this is pretty much about what we were looking at. We'll take a look at the replay as to what happened. So Armstrong gets tapped in the rear end, which was certainly suboptimal. Was it Emery Chihan that drove into the rear end then? Or was it...
was Stepanov, sure.
Stepanov's got a bit of damage on the front end, so it might be it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Stepanov. However, it is still a team Fordzilla 1-2 at the moment, across, of course, their 2 teams here for the moment. Stanley Deslandis in the Apex Racing Academy car, 3rd place, with Jamie Fluke in the primary car in 4th place. There was the 4 wide. Come on, lads. Come on, lads. That's never gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit harsh there on Fairclough, who tried making it 4 wide. Going to the outside. Now, I get it, being aggressive, trying to go on the attack, fair enough, but you know that Slipstream is playing a key part in a race like this. You just don't need to make it forward. I think that's kind of one of the things is when the aggression comes in. So this is what happened between Berryman. I mean, I did not see that from a particularly good angle to see what actually happened there between the two of them. It was just because that's not me trying to throw Hugo under the bus, by the way. That's just saying that angle for that instant. Oh, we get a producer in my ear in a second. Ted Bradbury, though, going super aggressive. The aggression, whilst it's great, it works for a few laps, it will always bite you if you go too far, and you're going to cost yourself a lot of points.
It really is, and I think that situation there was more of a string of single incidents that's put everyone on edge, basically, and just caused an entire mess. Everyone getting themselves into a chaotic mindset, trying to press on forwards, making irrational decisions, and I think someone in our wonderful YouTube comments has mentioned that the stewards might be quite busy after this race is done, let's just say that. But there's the front grouping of cars. Gouda from Stepanov, from Deslandis from Fluke. They have their own 4-car train for the race lead at the moment. There's a battle going on for P10 at the moment. And, Josh Armstrong coming through. Is Mira Schmidt involved in that one as well? Further down the order, Armstrong trying to hold off from Mira Schmidt at the moment. But it seems like he's doing well to do so for the moment. In fact, he might have just lost a lot of time on that last lap, if I'm seeing this correctly.
Believe so. Kind of around about a second or so. But as we'll head back to the live action for second spot, Stepanov and Deslandis allowing Gouda to get ahead. Deslandis trying to get around the outside of the old hairpin. That's a brave one.
Oh, it's so brave, and they were millimeters away from making contact. That was as close as you'd like. Jamie Fluke, no opportunity for him to get his way through on that one as a result, though. But it's always sketchy, Lewis, when two cars go side by side through the old hairpin. There's not a lot of runoff to use there, so if that car on the inside pushes wide, there's only one way or one location where that car on the outside is going to go, and it's across the curb, potentially into the grass, losing control.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job of proving the British F4 drivers proud. Because I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've watched British Formula 4 around here for a few years. I was here when Lando Norris was racing in British Formula 4 back in 2015, I think it was. I mean, this is literally what happens. Not quite the 4 wide to T1, but I mean, if they had the opportunity, they'd go for it. But I'm talking about big dive bombs down into the old hairpin, going around the outside, trying to make something stick up. I mean, this is literally what it is like. So it's pretty much spot on in that sense. Jamie Fluke with 5th place in the previous race, 4th in this one at the moment. I mean, he is super experienced, and I wouldn't put it past him to taking a victory in this kind of race. He's very good at just, again, playing the long game, using that experience straight down the inside of Stepanov and up in the 3rd.
Oh, that's a clean move as well. Very well done from Jamie Fluke there. Gets it done with no questions asked whatsoever. Stepanov had really nothing to fight that one with, and now Fluke can set his eyes forwards because his teammate in the sister car is trying to fight with our race leader at the moment. Deslandis definitely looking very, very threatening at this stage of the race. We're yet to even hit the halfway point here in race number 2, and things still hot as ever.
I mean, again, pretty much loving this combat. Like I said, it's normally it's a 6-car train, as there is Spets down the inside of Stepanov, who will now drop down to 5th. If they do battle quite hard, I wouldn't necessarily rule out Peter Berryman joining in on this fight, but they do have to fight pretty hard. Happened in the previous race, though. That's why the Munster Rugby Gaming cars moved up, back up to making it a 1-2, of course. Josh Ladd taking that victory ahead of Spets. You just kind of got to let them battle ahead, and here is Gouda defending from Deslandis.
Oh, here we go, wheel to wheel once again. Deslandis the long way around here, coming towards the very back end of the lap. Here comes the primary Apex Racing team car, the main team car of Jamie Fluke. Gets one done over the Academy machine. Does he go for the move on Gouda, though, in the Fordzilla car down in towards the chicane? No, I think Fluke's going to back out of this one, but Spets makes the move down the inside, makes it look convincing over Deslandis.
Yeah, look at Stepanov as well with the up and under coming out of Goddard's. This is the fighting that I was talking about, because Peter Berryman, you can see him there. The 6th car in shot, the distance between the two trains. He's been closed back into this. Spets looking straight to the inside of Fluke. Stepanov not able to get past Deslandis right now. It is going to be a 6-car fight for the race lead. But again, my question is, how long do these kind of battles last? At the moment, it is 5. It will be 6 soon enough. But how long does this last? Where is the drum? We had it almost immediately after we brought it up last time.
I think this is the Lewis McGlade rule of 6 here at the moment. There's always 6 cars in an F4 race that are battling out for the race lead. That seems to be the theme that we're going in here for the moment. Gowers has been able to hold on for the race lead so far. He's putting up a mega defense to Jamie Fluke, although Fluke, you just see them further down the road. Fluke has been able to get himself alongside and actually ahead at this point as well. Gouda's going to be coming under threat now from Spets down in towards the heavy braking zone of the chicane, but he's looking forward. He wants to get back down the inside of Jamie Fluke. Oh, they bang wheels coming through the corner as, that's Gouda dropping back through the order, and here comes Spets to the race lead with a compromised Jamie Fluke coming down the pit straight. Fluke might even settle in behind the Academy teammate of Deslandis here. Deslandis will fight it on the outside, though.
Yeah, it's going to be a better drive around the outside as well from Stepanov, potentially, so there might even be more issues coming down to the old hairpin. Jamie Fluke was kind of put into a bad situation there. That move was never on from Gowda. Got to say, he just was not alongside enough. Look at this, Deslanders straight down the inside, taking over the race lead from Spets. That's the aggressive dive down into the old hairpin, loving it up towards McLean's.
Indeed, and well, Jamie Fluke's looking for a race lead here as well, sending one down the inside of the Academy car, the Apex Racing Academy car. But don't count Spets out of this one. Stepanov, Berryman, Gowda, they're all still in this train and all still, well, fighting tooth and nail for these positions. It's great to see, and it's a great demonstration of the type of racing that we see here in Formula 4. It's not just on iRacing, but they're sometimes this chaotic in the real world as well, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. I've commentated on my fair share of junior formula within this country over this year. It's always a manic prospect, no matter what. Absolutely love it though. Spets to the inside of Fluke, properly sending it into the first corner. Might be a bit of a brush between them. The awkward bit for Apex, as much as they're running 1-2, it's the Academy in first. It's the main team in second. Of course, they do have Berryman in fourth, but they're not going to be scoring the big points for the team. They need to be getting that 1-2 if they want to have anything to deal with Munster Rugby Gaming at the end of this event. Obviously, it is a big championship, so fair enough. There's still plenty of time left to go. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but still, they'll be thinking about it straight from the offset.
Yeah, while all of this is going on, as you see Spets try and go for a P2 over Jamie Fluke, there is also an interesting grouping for the battle for the final championship point as well, in and around that P10. You've got Armstrong, you've got Mikolev, you've got Schmidt, all involved in that one, trying to scrap for minor points at this stage. As what's happened to Gowda? He's falling down the order. I'm not seeing him on circuit, so this might be a technical issue. No, he's back on circuit. However, he is off through the gravel. There's the battling cars there further down the order. Mikolev and Schmidt. Schmidt, of course, in the prismatic car, looking to the outside, coming down in towards Redgate. There she is, towards the outside. She's going to be able to make this move. This is so important for these teams to try and get themselves on the board in terms of points. But Mikolev is holding off the driver behind for now, and well, they've got the space to do so. They're in a bit of a space of their own. Schmidt briefly looking down the inside at the old hairpin, but decides better on it.
Yeah, she's doing a great job at the moment, but again, don't focus on the car ahead. Don't focus on McAuliffe. Focus on those that are way ahead of that. Focus on Armstrong or Gowda, who's now dropped back into 9th position. But that train for the race lead that's going 3 wide up into Coppice, focus on that. Deslandis has now a 1.6 second lead. There's clearly been a lot of drama in this. There you can see Deslandis miles ahead of Fluke, ahead of Berryman. There's an Apex Racing team potentially 1, 2, and 3 as Spets is down the inside going to the Goddards.
Oh, 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark into the final chicane. Spets up into gets the position over Berryman. Berryman keeps himself ahead of his sister car of McEwen, and then Stepanov and Ladd will come across the line in that order as well. This all has allowed Deslanders to gain a 1.6 second gap over the cars behind. I think that's the biggest leading gap we've seen so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis.
Potentially, we did see it getting around a second and a bit in the first race. In this race, certainly, it's never been that high, but it always will come back down again. In this scenario, it's nearly 2 seconds. That's big. That is a massive lead. Deslandis can now just drive around the circuit as he wishes. It's more about what Spets does now. Spets is the important bit in this fight, whether we're going to see another fight for the race lead. Deslandis is like, please, actually, can Spets fight Fluke and fight my teammate right now? Whereas Jamie Fluke, never mind. Deslandis, Spets has gone out wide. There we go. Sorted that one out.
I think there's your answer there, Lewis. There's your answer. Spets out into the grass, deciding to mow the lawn, shall we say. Has fallen back into the clutches of Berryman, McEwen as well. So it just gives that little bit more breathing space to Deslanders, to Fluke as well in this situation. It's looking very, very comfortable for the Apex Racing team and the Apex Racing Academy cars at the moment. They're, as it stands, looking to gain a whole boatload of points here coming out of race 2.
You know how, like, we all said before about how 6 might be my magic number and whatnot, as we'll see their better run from McEwen to get to the outside of Peter Bowman, going through Starkeys and up towards McLean. I think Bowman's going to back out of it and allow his teammate, an assistant teammate in a sense, to carry on. I don't think 6 is necessarily the magic number in this, because I know there's that big gap, 1.4 seconds between Deslandis and Fluke. Fair enough, that's going to be coming down. But look at the gaps. It's really first to 11th. 7.7 seconds back is McAuliffe, obviously now behind Schmidt. Again, he's done a great job to get past McAuliffe with the experience that he's got in this car. But I wouldn't necessarily rule this out in I wouldn't say 30 minutes, I'm going to say about 5, that all 7 of these are going to be, or all 11 of these are going to be in one train, complete from start to finish. Whether it will last the remaining 8 minutes from that point, don't know, but it's going to be tight.
It really, really is, and we're all watching with anticipation as these cars circulate here for the moment. Things at the front have indeed calmed down just that little bit. I think that's kind of a bit of a welcome break here at the moment. At least as you know, at least gives the drivers something to focus on that isn't side-by-side action every single corner of every single lap. It gives us a little bit of a chance to recap on what's going on behind as well. Josh Ladd's 6th place, going along well. He's up 4 places compared to where he started. Stepanov has held on quite well as well. Of course, he was our reverse grid pole position sitter. He currently resides in P7. In terms of big movers, Mira Schmidt up 13 spots from where she started. She's in the top 10 now and gaining that single championship point for Prismatic. Mikolev, big mover as well for him as well. He's up into P11. Xian, though, has slid back through the order quite significantly from 3rd to 13th. So it's not been fantastic for the Team Fortilla car.
Yeah, having issues very, very early on. In fact, I'm just going to say Team Fortilla not having a great race generally, considering they started 1, 2, and 3. Well, their driver that started 1, 2, and 3, Stepanov's down to 7th, Gouda down to 9th, and then, of course, like you said, Emily Chihan down to 13th spot. Pev not even really been in the conversation with all that, down 17th spot. So for Fortilla, certainly not an ideal scenario for them. But again, the race certainly isn't done in all of that. At least 2 of their cars are in this kind of, not really, but sort of maybe a little bit trained, but kind of. Because, of course, Stepanov and Gouda being 7th and 9th, sort of around about to the battle.
Yeah, it absolutely would be. And, well, the story of this race has yet to be concluded here, everyone. It's just that we've been able to get a little bit of a break from the frantic action. But you want to stay tuned for these final 12 minutes because, well, if race 1 is anything to go by, then we're in for another grandstand finish. It may not be for the race lead, or it might still be. Fluke is slowly trying to reel in Deslandis here for the moment, but the battle for the podium positions might be particularly exciting here at the end of this one. Multiple drivers involved. And, oh, that's a massive send. Excuse me, I just saw my own view of it. Luke McEwen just deciding that, well, he wanted to try and get the maximum braking performance out of the car, and, well, would have been at the detriment of Spets if he wasn't aware.
Yeah, I mean, that was just 2 drivers taking different lines. What are you talking about? No drama there. It's all good. No, obviously just totally crazy. Big send down the inside from McEwen. Spets saw it coming from a mile away and just read it brilliantly to get straight back down the inside. 3rd position at the moment. Jamie Fluke's catching Deslandis now. Again, now down to 1.2 seconds. Last lap, it came down to 10. All you really need to do is take it down a 10th or 2 basically each lap, and it's no problem. But Deslandis is in the Apex Racing Team Academy. Luke McEwen's in the Apex Racing Team Academy. They want a 1-2 in this race, so that's what McEwen's focused on right now. He doesn't really care what's happening in the bigger picture of the team. That's what his attention is, as Armstrong gets up in the 7th position. Didn't see it in the background. Schmidt did get past Goda on the previous lap, coming up towards McLean's.
A scrappy run through the final corner for Spets, though. It has allowed McEwen an opportunity up and under slightly to the exit of Redgate into Hollywood now. There's a slight overlap that McEwen has been able to maintain into the Craner curves. He might lose that through this apex, though. So the old hairpin opportunity is not one that's going to be available on this lap for the number 22 Apex Racing Academy car. Spets has been done very well to hold on to this position so far. McEwen will have another bite at the apple, though, around the outside. It's going to cut back in. Another attempt at the up and under for McEwen. This one might be a little bit more successful.
Yeah, I mean, that was a brilliant little look. Once again, like you said, just playing the card, trying to make the overtake 2 or 3 corners after the initial attempt. That's what you got to be doing. You got to be thinking 2 or 3 corners ahead. And now Spets being potentially dropped by 2 Academy cars because Apex cars rather, because Berryman's on the rear end of his Academy teammate McEwen coming down into Goddard's. McEwen getting ahead properly of Spets. Now Berryman has to worry about Josh Ladd. Be looking to the inside, coming up towards that first corner, and of course, smart stuff from Spets, giving the slipstream over to his teammate. Meanwhile, Berryman's getting to the outside of T1.
Yeah, this is looking like a good points haul once again for the Munster team as they are climbing the order here. Of course, they got themselves the 1-2 finish in race number 1, and now they are continuing to get ever closer to those podium positions. So it's fantastic for them. Of course, we did see Spets and McEwen have that battle, and Spets losing that position, but it's still a very, very good day for the Monster Gaming team. However, that could all be ruined by one rash decision, one slightly unwise move, and it can all become undone. There are a few drivers in this race already that have already had that happen to them, especially in the early goings here in race 2. So it's one thing to get up into these positions. It's another thing to make sure you actually survive to see the checkered flag.
Yeah, like I say, you got to play the long game. You got to think a few corners, a few laps ahead. I mean, a few minutes ahead. 8 minutes left to go in this race. You've got to be thinking about that, not about where you are now. McEwen defending the inside, Spets making it stick potentially around the outside as they come down through Hollywood and into the Craners. Of course, Josh Ladd has come through, dragging through Peter Berry. This is exactly what you're talking about. It's all well and good until you go for something that's maybe a little bit too over the line. If you're driving around this, no problem. Fair enough. Great entertainment from our point of view. But it only takes one driver like this trying to make it 3 wide that would ruin it for the lot. But Armstrong backs out of trying to do that in the JHR Developments car. He's obviously doing a bit of a recovery drive at the moment as Armstrong in a super effort. Berryman to the inside as they head through McLean's up towards Coppice. And Armstrong nearly picking his way through. Like I say, it only takes one move to ruin all of this.
You can see him in the bottom left-hand side of your screen, how laser focused he is on the screens in front of him. It's just, staring them down, basically. It's a crucial final 7 minutes for James Armstrong, trying to recover a couple positions from where he started in this event. Started 4th place, currently resides in 7th here for the moment. And he's going to be looking in his mirrors as well, because Stepanov is not too far away either. So that's the situation there. The main battle pack is this one for P3. McEwen, Ladd, Spets, Berryman all involved in this one, and might be our flashpoint for the end of this event. We are keeping a track of the guys at the very front. Islanders, his gap to his sister car has come down by quite a considerable margin, but whether or not that's going to be enough to bring Fluke into the equation at the very end of this race still remains to be seen. However, both of them have a humongous gap back to McEwen.
Oh yeah, they're going to finish first and second, right? It's just which way round they are, unless they trip over each other. But normally, Apex are clearly good on that. They get along quite well. They're not sort of so desperate to get one over each other. They're going to dive it down aggressively. Certainly, Jamie Fluke's not that kind of guy that will make a very, very risky move. So be between the two of them, but fair enough, which way round, that's the important bit. Meanwhile, Gowler and McAuliffe switch round for 10th position, coming down into Goddard's. Like you said, our focus of attention is on the battle for 3rd, the final spot on the podium, which Ladd is trying to steal away.
Indeed he is. The battle continues on between the Monster Gaming cars and, of course, that Apex Racing Academy number 22. McEwen holds on for now into the old hairpin. But being able to do that every single lap is certainly no guarantee. Of course, through Starkey's Bridge and now into the entry to McLean's. Ladd looking to try and get that run. It's usually the run up into Coppice that gives the opportunity to try and get past, or at least get alongside down the back straight and to make an attempt of it into the final chicane. But Josh Ladd, look at the runner speed that he has coming down the back straight, looking to the outside, backs out of it, decides that that's too risky of a move to be doing at this point. Instead tries to prioritize the run through the final chicane. Lap traffic getting itself well out of the way. 3 wide briefly with that lap traffic. Josh Ladd to the outside. Teammate Spets looking to the inside as well. That might not have been a wise option if he committed to it, so thankfully he backed out of it. McEwen maintains his position in the front of this trade, though.
Yeah, I was solidly shaking my head at that one with Spets trying to make that 3 wide down to the first corner. Thankfully, wisely backed out of the attempt, trying to more so fill the mirrors of McEwen and maybe force a mistake. But unfortunately, if McEwen did make a mistake, it would be out into his teammates. I think that one would have gone down very well. Armstrong giving Peter Berryman a little bit of an assist up the couple of curves towards McLean. To the inside, Peter Berryman's going to go on Spets, again separating the grouping ever so slightly, allowing Stepanov to close in bit by bit. Nearly making out a 6-car train. We're almost there for the podium. We'll keep our fingers crossed. The magic number. I'm desperate.
We're waiting for the Lewis McLeod rule of 6 to come into effect at the very end of this race. I'm going to make that a thing, Lewis, okay? You can't stop me.
I'll allow it.
Into the final chicane we go with the onboard view with James Armstrong. He has 2 cars ahead of him. That might potentially be for the pickings here at the very end of this race, but they are 2 very potent competitors, Alexander Spets and Peter Berryman. However, further down the road, we have Luke McEwen and Josh Ladd going at it, wheel to wheel, through Redgate, through Hollywood, and then down the hill. But Josh Ladd keeping himself involved in this one and trying to wrestle this opportunity at a podium finish away from Luke McEwen, but McEwen's been exemplary on the defense so far this race. It seems it's almost impossible to try and get past him.
Yeah, I mean, super effort. He's got a lot on his shoulders, though. He's trying to make this an Apex 1-2-3 to get a little bit of a 1-over on Munster Rugby. They've only had a 1-2. They can only get a 1-2. But still, 1-2-3 for Apex. That would be pretty handy right now. Like I say, he's got a lot of pressures on his shoulders. For me, Munster Rugby, they don't need to risk anything right now. They're running in 4th and 5th. They've got some great points from the first race to the 1st and 2nd. Going to get some great points from this. But you forget about the whole challenge, the whole bigger picture when you're in a race like this. You're only focused on that guy ahead. You want to get past him. You don't want to settle. None of that stuff in this kind of race. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the race. We want to see the wheel-to-wheel combat.
Indeed we do, and a run of speed this time around into Redgate for Josh Ladd, and they're gonna come together slightly coming off the corner. That could have been a sketchy situation. There's the Josh Ladd's teammate, 2 Munster Rugby Gaming cars going side by side in through the Craner curves. That's not exactly ideal. Spets does back out of it, however. Spets definitely one of the most aggressive drivers that I've seen over the course of the 2 races here today. Josh Ladd trying to take that title away from him as he again looks to the outside on McEwen, but can't get the drive off the corner required to have a run in towards Coppice. But we are starting to run out of laps here.
Yeah, like I said, it's the rule of 6. They're there together. They're all going for it at the moment. I think there might have been some sort of slow exit from Coppice, potentially from Spets, allowing McEwen and Ladd to just clear off ever so slightly. As we ride on board with Armstrong, you could see how, to be honest, you can see how little he could see going into the braking zone, right almost over the rear end of Berryman, and now Stepanov into the mix.
Indeed he is. Stepanov definitely factoring in this one as it's 2x2, at least very briefly on the way through turn number 1. We've got 2 laps to go here in this situation. Not a lot of time, not a lot of laps, not a lot of corners for these guys to settle their differences, especially in this battle for the final podium spot, kicking up the dirt coming out of the old hairpin as they try to maximize the track limits. And of course, they do still have to be careful about an instant limit. They don't want the same situation to happen in this race as what happened in the previous race, trying to serve that slowdown penalty. But let's have a look up in towards Coppice. Berryman and Spets had a little bit of a duel there. They're going to be compromised off the corner here as well, so Armstrong can stick his nose in here in this situation as well. It's all going to come to a head here as we start and come on to the final lap in just a couple of moments for these guys. Armstrong's going to get bullied down the road. Armstrong into the tyre barriers on the outside, at least grazes them with the right side of the car. He's able to rejoin the circuit, however, as the battles continue. Vera Schmidt getting herself up into P7 now. She's looking all over the back of Peter Berryman. What a race it has been for the number 74. She's got to hold on to this against Stepanov as well. Stepanov absolutely all over the back of the gearbox of the Prismatic car.
Super race it's been for everyone. I mean, what a great show over the entire evening. But I've got to say, the gap for the race is looking concerningly low. Are Apex going to apply any team orders here, or is Fluke going to be given the major opportunity to go for anything down to go? I don't know about you, Connery. I think he's too far back anyway. I don't think Apex would want to see any switch in this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Deslandis. There's Jamie Fluke. Fluke's not going to be close enough, I'm afraid, to make a move down into the chicane. Stanley Deslandis, the Apex Racing Academy car, heads his way across the line to take the race 2 win here at Donington Park in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. Everyone else behind. No battles into the final chicane as everyone comes and finishes their races. Fantastic stuff indeed from everyone involved there at the very front of the field. Fluke gets himself a second place. McEwen gets himself on the podium. And especially for McEwen, that was a very well-earned podium as well, with the amount of pressure he was dealing with.
And not only that, it's back-to-back podiums for McEwen as well. He was on the podium in the first race. He was the lead of the Apex Racing team, and by lead of them, I mean there was all 4 of them in one gaggle, and he was the head of all 4 of them, and not quite the head of all 4 of them in this race, but still back-to-back podiums. Apex with a 1-2-3 in this. They are looking super, super strong, it's got to be said. I don't know where this championship's going to go. Obviously, again, getting way too ahead of ourselves, but I mean, what a brilliant way to start. What a brilliant track to start as well. Donington Park, one of the very best.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, and a great result for the Apex Racing team, both in their full team and in their academy cars as well. They'll be coming out of this race too very, very happy indeed. They've secured themselves a very good situation in terms of points here coming out of the first race event. The car's heading their way back down on towards the pit lane. That will give us the opportunity to get us our final race results from race 2. Stanley Deslandis takes a race win here with Jamie Fluke on the podium as well. Second step of the podium for him. Luke McEwen makes it an all Apex Racing podium. We've got Josh Ladd in P4, and Alex Spetz makes a P4 and 5 Munster Rugby Gaming contingent as well. So it's a great result coming out of the first 2 races for those guys as well. Peter Barron in P6. Mira Schmidt, P7 in a number 74 car. What a performance, given that she was our biggest mover of the day. Up 16 spots compared to where she started. Fantastic. We've got ourselves Oliver Stepanov in P8 with James Armstrong in P9. Dion Gouda in at P10 as well. Of course, he was one of the beneficiaries of the reverse grid and does well to hold on to a top 10 finish and is our final point scorer here for race 2. Pete Harrod narrowly missing out in terms of a points finish here today, and well, it's a second P11 in a row for Pete Harrod, so maybe a little bit of frustration there for the number 21, missing out on the points for 2 races in a row by 1 position. Emre Sheehan falling back to the order. He's P12 with Chris Owen in P13. He had a good day recovering from P21 as a starting position. Ryan McAuliffe in P14 with Peo Pev in P15. Ryan Feklo in P16 here today in race 2. So that's definitely not ideal for a driver so quick. As far as those cars 1 lap down or more, Monica Ramos will finish in P17 with Azzy Ardell in P18. Lewis Apiegi in P19. And then our retirements from this race, Kian Gohil, Matt Caruana, Ted Bradbury, and Carl Chase did not take the start, actually. So we've got our second race in the books here, and well, that's going to be at least the racing done here for the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. But we will get the opportunity here, Lewis, in a couple of moments to speak to a couple of our drivers.
Yeah, I certainly would like to catch up on what they've made of the first round, because it's been an absolutely crazy affair. I mean, there's a lot of talking points. Again, Apex and the Munster Rugby Gaming cars going very, very well, right there at the front of basically both races. But then there are a few drivers that we really need to talk about them. If there were 3 drivers that coming into this, I would guarantee would be at the front. It would be McAuliffe. Well, Fairclough actually I wouldn't guarantee, but he's done very well. But it would be Fairclough, it would be McAuliffe and Ted Bradbury. Those 3, I'd expect them to be at the front. Fair enough. No, they didn't get any points. Neither of those 3 got any points. And it's just kind of like one of those crazy things.
We've got a race winner in the house, Stanley Deslandis. Lewis, you're standing by with our race 2 winner.
Certainly. Well, great to have you here, and what a victory it was. Talk us through that kind of race. You had a bit of a breakaway from those behind, getting away from the just crazy fighting. Was that were you able to calm yourself down through the race there?
Yeah, to be fair, it was quite tough. Like, me and Jamie just managed to push our way to the front, and then obviously we had Luke and Peter behind battling a bit, and as soon as we got a bit of a gap, we would just kind of just manage the tyres and just not make any mistakes to the end.
What's it like racing these cars around circuits like this? I mean, it looked like a massive, basically glorified pack racing. It looked absolutely maddening out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's super messy because the track is really narrow, but I mean, the cars are super pointy, so you have to be careful on your steering lock, and not trying to slide the tyres too much, because once they overheat, you'll be sliding all over the place and you can easily bin it. But the racing was tough. Just need to position yourself in the correct spot, because if you get pushed out wide, you lose like 3-4 positions.
What's it like being in the Apex Racing, Team Academy, having the support of all their drivers and whatnot, and kind of working so closely with the team? Seems, at least from what we were seeing from this point of view, that you all kind of get along, at least on track, with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. Like, being in the academy, you can always have the faster guys like Jamie, Peter to work off of, and if you need any help with either lines or setup, you could just ask them and they'll help you out. So this round we prepared all together and seemed to work out, and our hard work paid off.
Well, we'll let you celebrate the victory in your own way. A super performance, and I'm sure a young driver will be talking about quite a lot through this championship. Cheers, Stanley.
Thank you.
Wow, I mean, great stuff. Great stuff to hear from our race winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was very well deserved there from Stanley as well. And, well, we have Jamie Fluke as in our commentary booth as well. Lewis, once again, take it away.
Yeah, most important question, Jamie. Where are my track maps? Where are they? We've still not got them.
We'll get something sorted. Don't
okay,
do that.
I've heard this all year. All year.
Yeah,
right.
I'll still figure it out.
Let's talk about the race itself. Let's talk about the event. You had a couple of top fives in there. Didn't qualify so well though. We'll roll our way all the way back to that. What was your mentality after qualifying? What are you kind of expecting for an event like this?
I was expecting absolute carnage, and that's exactly what we got. It was just survival of the fittest out there, or survival of the luckiest more than anything. I am grateful that I got through that with no damage on the car, and we can roll through to next week, and hopefully it'll be a little less hectic, shall we say.
Now, quite a lot of drivers on the grid. This is not me calling you old, by the way. There are quite a lot of drivers on the grid that are very, very young. You're one of the more experienced drivers on the grid.
That.
Do you think that experience kind of works a lot in your favor to kind of guide you through some of these races?
I would hope so, but yeah, with some of the driving out there, you're put into very compromising positions, whether you liked it or not, and you've just got to get the elbows out and defend yourself. It was like a boxing match out there where you're just getting hit in the face relentlessly, and you just got to eventually stand up for yourself. So yes, the experience that I've accumulated over however many years did help me sort of pick my battles, a little bit wiser than maybe some, but on another day that could have ended a lot worse for me.
What are you kind of expecting from the championship to come? We know it's going to be relentless combat, basically any circuit we go racing at. Are you kind of expecting it to be maybe just as chaotic regardless of where we go?
Yes, that's a very firm yes on that one, based off what I've seen today, because in what testing that we've done for this, we were thinking that really the only spot where you could make moves was T1 into red gear, and then maybe if guys made mistakes elsewhere, but not what we've seen this evening. That was ludicrous.
Wow. Cheers to Jamie Fluke. Again, we'll let you get off and celebrate two very good results. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
And we've also got Luke McKeown, who's joining us in the commentary booth as well. Two brilliant drives, two podiums. I mean, to come through an event like that and get 30 points onto the board, I mean, incredible performance just on consistency. But let's be honest, you had to really work for it in that second race. Big defense all the way through from start to finish. Talk us through that.
Yeah, well, the start was good, like lap 1 and 2 and 3. And lap 2, 1 and 2, sorry. And then lap 3, I got caught in an incident with I can't remember who it was, but I ended up being P16 at the end of that lap, and I don't know, it was like, I almost felt like race was over, but there was quite a few big incidents in front of me, and I started working up to like P8, P7, and then it's just all about picking your right time to get in front of people and being patient, because there's always like incidents with a race like this in this car. But yeah, once it got up to that P3, I tried to give Jamie and Stan a bit of a gap so they could just drive off without any issue, and then it was just all about trying to stay ahead of Josh and Alex behind, which was pretty hard because being teammates, they're not going to overtake each other and they're just going to try and get me, but I guess we managed it in the end. Yeah, really happy.
I mean, it was a great drive in a car that maybe you're not so familiar with. Normally, when I'm commentating, it's normally in something like a GT3 or something in that kind of vein. How does this differ to some of the cars that you're normally used to driving, to racing? How does it kind of switch it up a little bit?
Yeah, it's a completely different driving style. It's the cars are so pointy at the front. You really have to get the car turned in, be quite easy on power because it's quite tire sensitive as well. Like you have a few slides and the car's over rotating a lot, and the racing's so much tighter. But also with the tighter racing, it's the side to side contacts are really harsh. Like with open wheelers, you don't have a body around you that you can kind of lean on, which makes it really difficult.
And one final question, knowing what British tracks are like, i.e. very different each second we go racing. We go racing at Alton Park next time. What are you kind of expecting from there? Similar kind of results, maybe a double podium? It's going to be a bit harder, I think, to come through the grid around such a tight and twisty circuit.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually done a race at Alton, so that'll be a new one. Yeah, really looking forward to it. It'll be possibly more bigger gaps. It won't be such tight racing, hopefully. With a tight and twisty, with no real straights, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. It'll be hard to make an overtake though, like you say, in the reverse grid.
Wow. Cheers. I mean, again, to all of the Apex racing team. Cheers, Luke, Garth, and have a good evening, and good luck with Alton Park next week.
Cheers.
I mean, what a group of drivers to have got a 1, 2, 3 in a race like that. They really are quite talented.
Yeah, incredibly talented, and well, that doesn't just apply to those top 3, to be honest. They are the cream of the crop when it comes to race 2, but I think everyone up and down the grid should be proud of themselves here today. Of course, it did get a bit scrappy, a bit messy in places, but that's just that's just F4 racing. Sometimes it can be chaotic, it can be crazy, and it certainly delivers a huge level of excitement. But of course, next time out, like you mentioned there, Lewis, we head to Alton Park, and well, that is a different kettle of fish, shall we say, compared to the racing that we've had here at Donington Park. We're not using the full Grand Prix layout. We're using the we're using the island layout there. So that's going to be an interesting one for these drivers.
Yeah, the island, the one that you'd normally see on British touring cars, you would see in British Formula 4 in real life. It doesn't go down to the Shell oils. It just comes down to the island hairpin, which is that tight one basically after the second straight once you've come down through Cascades and whatnot. Great track. I absolutely adore this place. It requires bravery. It requires commitment. Once you come up through Clay Hill towards Druids and whatnot, brilliant circuit. You cannot be scared of this place. But it bites, and it bites really hard.
Yeah, and well, in particular here with the nuances of iRacing, there are some very stubborn tyre barriers on the apexes of some of these corners as well, which will be a very, very tricky for these guys to negotiate. But that's all that we are going to have time for here on the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. My name is Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the ever wonderful Lewis McGlade, and we'll see you next time out at Alton Park. But for now, we will have to say goodbye.